Here are some of my tips for how to do well in a virtual interview. I have been in a lot of virtual interviews and I kind of wanted to just share some tips and tricks that I learned along the way that I think helped me feel more comfortable and helped me stand out as a good candidate. Virtual interviews are becoming super popular and companies are leaning on them a lot more for the interview process. I think after COVID, a lot of companies realized that they can kind of gauge how a candidate is through a virtual interview and it's a lot easier for them. So I think a lot of them are leaning towards that. So I just want to give some of my tips and tricks about how I've been able to manage this that will hopefully set you up for success if you have your own virtual interview coming up. So, the first tip I have is making sure that the camera on your computer is eye level with you when you're sitting down for the interview. This kind of gives a more personal feel to the video. For instance, right now I am looking at the lens of my camera. This kind of makes it look like I'm looking more at you. Whereas sometimes in an interview, people will set up their cameras to be like not eye level, so then it'll look like this. You can see that I'm obviously not looking at the camera and it's kind of making it look less personal. So just making sure that you are setting up your camera lens to be looking directly at your eyes. This makes it feel much more personal and will really help with that connection for your interview. What I usually do, since just having my computer on a table does not make it eye level for me, what I do is I'll put some books under it so that way it is eye level with me and it makes it a lot easier to look at the lens. While we're on that topic of discussing computers, I would make sure that the computer that you are using for your interview is working well. My old computer would frequently just turn off randomly, so I knew I didn't want to use that. So I would borrow either my husband's laptop or a friend of mine's laptop just so I could get through the interview. And I knew that I could rely on the laptop and that it wouldn't shut off. So just make sure that you have a reliable laptop that won't happen. Also, if you are not familiar with the platform of the interview, say that's Zoom or Teams, familiarize yourself with those platforms and just understand how to turn on your camera, how to check your mic. You don't want to be scrambling in the beginning of your interview trying to figure that out. Usually, as well, you can log on before an interview and just test your video and test your sound. So I'd recommend doing that just to make sure everything is working correctly. Okay, next I'd make sure that you have pretty good lighting in the area that you will be conducting your interview. Ideally, you have some sort of natural light in the background shining on you, like where I am now. I'm in front of a big window, so you can see me quite clearly and it looks pretty good. Whereas if you're like in a closet or a room with no windows, then it can often look pretty dark. Again, it might not make or break your interview, any of these things, but it's just something that I think makes you stand out and look more professional. Okay, so next I wanted to talk about sound quality. I think how you sound is pretty important. Like if there's a lot of noise in the background, that's not very good. So just making sure that you're in a quiet space. I know this can be pretty hard. So if you can, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. Another thing that you could consider is if the room that you're in has bad acoustics or a lot of echo. I usually do my interviews from my kitchen, and there is a large echo in there. So, something that I actually do to kind of reduce the echo is I'll add like pillows and blankets to the room, and that just kind of sucks up the sound. I know it's pretty extreme. You don't you don't have to do any of this, but that's kind of what I did, and I think it really makes the sound a lot more crisp and clear. Another important part of the interview would be what you are wearing. So, just I would recommend wearing a nice shirt that kind of makes you look good, that you feel comfortable in, and that you feel makes you look good. This just kind of makes you look professional, and it will make you feel good too if you're wearing something that you think suits you well. Something I'd recommend you doing for the interview is having your resume right in front of you with some highlights of major accomplishments that you've completed in each position that you've been in before. This way, you kind of just have an easy reference if you need to. You got those questions like, tell me about a time blank, right? So you have some answers like right in front of you that can just spark your memory, and you can be like, oh, yeah, I remember I did this. And then tell them the story about that. I think that really helps to just kind of have those ready, cuz I get pretty nervous in an interview, at least in the beginning, and I know like many other people do. So when I'm nervous, I can often forget what I was going to say, so it's nice to have those references right in front of me. I also think it's nice to have a glass of water with you because you are going to be doing a lot of talking. It's kind of nice to be able to get a glass of water if you need. And if you just kind of need a minute to think about something, you could also just take a sip of water as well. It's kind of like a good reset, and you know that you always have that available if you have some sort of scratch in your throat or something like that. And then lastly, just make sure you're preparing for the interview, do your research of the company, and make sure you have your questions ready to go. Always make sure you ask questions. I think it really helps show interest in the company, and you can kind of get some answers as well about different things that you're curious about. I would recommend doing lots of practice before the interview and just having some stories ready to go in the back of your head so you are more prepared for the questions that are going to be asked. And always remember, an interview works both ways. So you're also trying to see if you want to work at that company. So keep that in mind as well as you go through the process. All of these things that we talked about today have really helped me in my experience prepare and set myself up for success in an interview, or at least I'd like to think so. Let me know if these tips helped you or if you have any questions. But that's everything for today, and thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.